and this uniform community standard, doesn't then the board or the panel have more say over what that person does with their property than the person himself who's paid for it and pays the property taxes?
Well, the rub is that your question, in my opinion, just my opinion, I'm just going to speak, is based on that the ordinances are not fair, or they exceed whatever your definition of the minimum requirement should be, right? Because you're saying if you're keeping it to your minimum, you as an individual, just in your example, not you personally, but are keeping it to a minimum standard, but it's not a health risk, but.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If the ordinance could be written in such a way that it stops at that line.
But that line is not a solid line. I think it's in the eye of the beholder, and that's what we're trying to do by agreeing on the words to make sure that it's clear and
grass,
specific.
if you get 9-inch grass, is it really endangering anybody? I mean, it's just so. It's pretty strict.
Arbitrary.
For, you have one rainy week and you're, a violator. You run out of money to put gas in your weed eater. Your weed eater is broken.
So let's talk about those examples. So it's a rainy week, and probably everyone is having that same rainy week. So I'm sure not going to sign a complaint against someone who can't mow their yard because I can't keep up with my yard.
Somebody can't afford gas for the lawn.
Well, so then, if someone makes a complaint, it would come to the panel, and the panel would come to the property owner and say, "Are you having a hard time? Is there something we could do to help you? I can't afford gas for my weed eater." Okay. Well, how much do you think that would take, or could we get a team of volunteers to come in and help you out this week?
Yeah, and then you have to pay for that team, right? According to the ordinances, I thought if you didn't maintain something, that the board would hire somebody to do it.
That's only after the complaint panel's intervention is rejected or abused. If every week suddenly you don't have money to mow your yard, and it's not some.
What if it is that way for somebody?
No.
The panel, if the person says we don't care and you're not going to mow our yard.
Well, maybe they just don't feel that they should have to answer. You're a grown person. You don't feel like you should have to answer to somebody as long as you're not violating anybody else's
But
rights.
there has been evidently a complaint.
Well, complaints happen at the drop of a pin. Complaints can happen very easily. If somebody has a grudge against somebody. I mean, complaints, don't only happen when it's justified and fair. And
that's why the complaint panel reviews it to see whether it really is a violation or whether someone's being,
I think that was the purpose of not having it just be one person, was to have 3 people so that it wasn't just one person targeting somebody.
Yes, sir.
Can we, instead of going over all the ordinances and taking a long time to do that, time and energy, maybe we could write the ordinances as the complaints come in. And then we literally have what the problem is, what's going on. Because I agree with her. I think that, we're going to have to find that line, and I think to write rules and regulations that I feel as a grown adult don't have to justify myself with, that have been defended by the Constitution, that I shouldn't have to go over that unless it's something that's happening. And unless it's affecting somebody, like I have oil and toxins on my yard and they're leaking into somebody else's, or they're, making the farmland not work. But as far as maybe my grass is, 5 inches too tall, and Joe and Jill and Paul think, they can't have a good view anymore, and this literally happens. They can't see out their kitchen window because my tree's too tall, but I like my peaches and I like my tree that tall. Next thing I know, I'm having to defend my peach tree. But I'd rather have that battle as it comes. Sorry, thanks.
Okay, what I found when I was looking for
What page?
the Board of Trustees of the Village of Jameson is entrusted with the duty to protect the public health and welfare and establish the regulation, maintenance, and it says police of the village. I would put in there, instead of police of the village, somehow to put the complaint review panel in there, that will go to them, and then it will come back to us.
Yeah, that needed to be rewritten.
Yeah.
What page
So
are you on?
instead of police, it would, I don't know.
27.
27?
I was just, if I could just comment,
27.
the term police in this context.
And it says, often it is impracticable and unaffordable to employ or contract for the services required to fulfill these duties, such as ordinance enforcement, building inspector, mowing, and the like. Therefore, the board deems it necessary to have alternatives for the performance of these services. And that is where the complaint review panel will come in, which we are never going to get to at this rate here. So that when we, even if we don't, the ordinances aren't exactly like we want them, and we are arguing over a word in the ordinance and all of this, if we don't just go on with it and get this complaint review panel appointed, and it will be of either one or two people from the citizens of the town, and one or two from the board that will be on the panel. And they will not come to you and say your grass is 10 feet high and you have 10 inches high. 10 feet high. 10 inches high, and you're and you're going to get fined $500 for this or something. That is ridiculous to even think that in any kind of a way that would happen. So if we just go ahead and go with it like it is, and have our complaint and review panel set up, and they come and somebody says, I can't do this, and like she says, it rained all week and the grass is too, you're not going to hear a word from anybody unless somebody in this town comes and complains about it. And they might say, okay, your dog was in my yard and messed up my flower bed or something. They don't come to the board, they go to this review panel and talk to them, and so they talk to them about, oh, what can we do about this? Is this a good complaint? Then let's see if we can't talk to the person whose dog this is and see what we can do about it. And with anything else, if we just could get to this complaint review panel and see how it will work. Then if we find out something down the line that these ordinances are wrong, we can't keep going through, like she said, that over and over and over again, and nitpicking over every little thing. We'll never get anywhere. Nobody has fined anybody. Nobody has brought any charges against anybody for anything.
Well, other towns in the small town cooperative board, under the small town cooperative board, other people have been fined.
Yeah, but not here. We haven't.
In fact, the fines have been so much that they were allowed to make payments because out of the graciousness of the people in this.
With this complaint and review panel, it really should take care of it.
Lori, did you have something?
I did. I had a question I wanted to ask you, but it left me. But I did want to make a comment about what you're saying, and that is, if the ordinance is not going to be applicable, if it's not, how did you say it? And I'm going to say it badly back to you. Well, what, oh, we're never going to get to this, and or this ordinance is not going to be used, or how did you say it? I think I'm saying it badly. If it's not going to be used, why have it there?
Yes.
Why have it? Why is it necessary? Now, this I do have to say on my behalf.
You felt like no one else has been on your behalf.
Okay.
Okay.
My opinion.
Oh,
Put it that
okay,
way. This is the big issue. So many of the ordinances are based on this very issue. That's why it's one. And you're saying we're going back over and over. It's because this is the pinnacle. This is where the greatest argument lies. It's in dealing with personal property. And Allison really did have a point. We, as a board, are dictating to people who pay for their property, pay the taxes, and we're telling them how to run their property. Now, you're saying, well, that's not going to happen. The panel will be panel friendly. They'll be neighbor friendly, which is why we designed the panel and passed it. It's still the thought that it's the board dealing with people's personal property.
Right. And I would not say that the board isn't going to use the ordinances when a complaint is filed to say, is this the problem? Because, I mean, when we pass these, that will be what it is. And so I don't think we can say, yep, it says you can only be 6 feet, but yours is 7 feet. Oh, that's okay, 7 is close enough. I don't think we're going to do that. I think we're going to say this is the standard. And that's what we're bound to do legally to do.
I do think you have an argument when you talk about community standard. You know, I really can understand the desire of the board, and I can see how these ordinances came about because of this standard that you were desiring for the community. I desire it too, but not at the expense of dealing with people's personal property. That's why I am presenting to you an alternative.
Can we make it so whoever is on the panel is not on the board? Because I almost see a conflict of interest with the person on the panel being on the board. The people who make the rules are also.
It's not.
It's not. Okay.
Well, no, it's not just the people on the panel. It's what it's
There's one person, I think.
One from the board, one from
At least one board member.
One member of the board does represent, is on the panel.
So one person from Betterment could be an out-of-town person.
Not Betterment. I'm sorry.
Isn't the panels one person from Betterment, one person from the village, and one person from the board?
Yes, that was the design.
No, it's one person from the board, and at least one person from the board, and at least one person from the community. Betterment isn't in any of that at all.
I thought it was.
And so one or the other will have two.
I thought one was, that was.
We talked about that, but Betterment is, Betterment may not be may not be around, but there'll always be people on the board, there'll always be residents. And so Betterment's, while it's an organization, I think will be here for a long time. That's not it. Mary?
Just one quick comment, because Aletha, I think you say if one word, and we're arguing over one word, why do it? If you just changed within Jameson to of Jameson, that's one word. And if one word's not a big deal, then do it. Then we could probably live with that, because what else are we going to get? You know, it's not a stall tactic. We just are venomously opposed to people. It's like, Dad, if you got on your golf cart and you come out by my house and you're sitting there looking, and you're like, oh my gosh, Mary has not got this thing done. It's like, really and truly, it's like, it isn't, I don't see that it's your responsibility, you know, to anyone to complain. I wouldn't complain about your yard or Aletha's if had, you know, nobody, they quit coming over and trimming her bushes like my son-in-law. If things happen, it's like, hey, unless I offer to help you, I'm not going to.
Well, if there are no
complain about you.
complaints, then because of the way that we have it established, there'll be no enforcement. But if it gets something gets out of control, that someone, whether they're a board member or a community member, thinks that it's a violation of health or it's a danger to children walking to school, you know, whatever it is, I'm just making up examples, then somebody's going to make a complaint. And then it's going to say, well, you may not like it, but is it an ordinance? Yes, it's an ordinance. And then, okay, well now then that person will come to whoever owns that property and say, you know, you may not know it, but you're out of compliance, and this is the ordinance, and this is the situation, and so the board has requirement that you meet this ordinance. Is there something we can do to help you meet this ordinance? You know, is
so
it because
really
has somebody sick or
I
whatever?
think it should just be your job to go around, and when you see that situation, then get this panel that Aletha's got, go just do it and forget this. You don't need it. We got you. Go to those
Who's
people. You. You know, you see something like, okay, this is a danger. It's like, so get the panel, go over and do that process you've just talked about, which isn't in writing anywhere. Where you
Yes,
go,
it
look, where we can help you somewhere, or is this?
You mean have the panel operating? Is that what you're requesting?
Well, I'm just saying if
Whether
somebody's
we-
going to complain and we're just going to go help them out, I mean, who's going to say, no, I don't want your help? I was like, yeah, fine, bring your brush cutter, bring your...
Well, people have said no, Mary, that's.
They don't want help?
Yeah, people have said, no, I don't care. I'm not
And
doing
you
it.
can't mow my yard?
Yep.
Yes.
Who
They
said
have
that?
done it. We have run into that.
Who said that?
Okay. Any other comments?
You can mow my
No.
yard.
So can we draw the line between danger and aesthetics, at least?
That's in the eye of the beholder. I mean, what is in here has
Danger,
to
like
do
9-inch
with...
grass is dangerous? Could you
I don't
at
see
least
it.
make the standard a little more?
So are you let me understand you, Allison. You're saying then we should go with the ordinance the way it is and then address the size, the length of grass.
Well,
And you
just-
keep bringing that up, and that's
And
why I'm asking
everything, and all of the wording, make it be geared around whether it endangers anybody or not whether it's aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, okay. We take your point, you know, and residents bring that up. We'll address that. Any other discussion on this?
Person, that's.
Just real quick, does it say how many warnings the person gets before they get fined?
Yeah, the ordinances are on the website, every household has a set of those.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna go through it.
So is this a consideration to open it up?
What you would need to do is to move that, and I would do it section by section, that section 1 of the property maintenance ordinances be changed to what you've done.
Well, I don't want to change to exactly what I'm saying here.
Okay.
I've only, you asked for an alternative,
Go for it.
that's what I'm getting, an alternative. Now, I'm sure it would need to be stated more clearly. I agree with Alina, it probably needs to be clearer. You're saying it's too vague, it's too general.
Can I second
And I
to
know
open
that
it?
does require rewriting work.
Yeah, well, if you're, so maybe what you're asking for is sort of a straw poll, an opinion, what do the board members who are here tonight think about what your proposal is? Is it something that I personally could see endorsing or whatever, to see whether it's, you know, because there are 2 members who aren't here, and it takes 3, so I don't think you want to vote on this. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but I think others should look at it and, you know, see if they want, we can make a decision tonight, but it'd have to be unanimous for you to prevail.
Okay, I make a proposal that we rewrite the property maintenance definition differently than the way it is written in the current ordinances. That it, and I'm going to be specific, that it applies only to the property that the town has charge of, not personal property of the people within this person.
Is there a second to that motion? Failing to get a second, motion dies.
Unrighteous dominion.
Where is the?
You got a chance to be a hero in.
She should be excommunicated for violating the doctrine and covenants as far as I'm concerned.
Well, the applications are there, the application.
Will be
Well, that's
application,
one
but
of the
also
only
what
three, so this.
one that says what their responsibilities would be and how they would go about.
For the panel, do you know what ordinance that is?
That
I don't think you covered the ordinance for the complaint panel, did you? Did you?
She copied the,
No, that's the proposal.
the one that says.
establishment procedures that you adopted is what she copied.
For the complaint panel, so it is there.
Yes, but it tells what the complaint panel is going to do and what the responsibilities are.
Okay, we'll just see. You're right, we all need to have the same piece of paper in our hands.
Yeah, the application.
Yeah, and what they shall and shall not. Okay, thanks. We need to get that to you, it's not punished, so we need to have.
You guys see this?
Yeah, how about that? And that will tell them then if we're going to.
Madam Chair, whatever you should be called tonight, I'm not sure.
Yes?
May I make a couple of comments?
Sure.
First of all, in what Alita read earlier tonight, where it makes reference to the police of the village, that doesn't refer to having a police force. Police is a term used in law that means
Oh, no, you did good.
when the police department clean it up. If you want to take out the term, there's no real harm in taking it out because maintenance is essentially the same thing. It's just taken straight in line. But just looking at the property maintenance ordinance, the comment has been made, could you get it to where it's based solely on those things that are sacred hazardous and such? And I would just comment, now this is obviously up to you, but I would just comment that most of the items that are in it are very clearly tied to those kinds of hazards. The exception is the specific height of grass and weeds, and that's not totally tied to it. And the reason that it was set, and the board decided that the height level, and each board I've worked with has different levels, but is so that you establish a baseline standard so that when it gets way out of hand. If you wanted to change that number, you certainly could, and still establish a baseline. In addition, the eyesore standard. The eyesore standard is a term of law that is commonly used and is usually, truthfully, ends up being defined in court. You could eliminate the eyesore standard, the eyesore provisions, and still have the things that you're really trying to address. This is, once again, this is only an opinion, like anybody else's opinion. But if you went through Section 4 and looked at it, virtually everything is related to, health, safety, or fire hazard, danger of rodents, etc. It doesn't always say that, but it virtually all is. If you were to do something with the height of grass and weeds and move it to a higher level so that it's more clear what your intent is, to where when it really gets out of hand. And then look at the others and see if there's anything in it that is not a health and safety hazard. That would not be an unreasonable thing to do. Some people have judged everything in it to be a health and safety hazard, and some judge it differently, and that judgment would be with you as to which ones. But the eyesore, you don't have to have the eyesore standard. It is the one that makes me most ill at ease, me personally most ill at ease, because it is subject to a lot of interpretation, whereas the others are pretty clear and pretty specific. So that was just my comments, and as much as anybody else's.
Thank you. Thank you for making those comments. Okay. Well, now we can action. All right, we're going to move to financial reports.
I gave the handouts already to all the board on the general checking account and the restricted funds account. Currently in the general checking account, there's a balance of $1,254.38 after this month's bills were paid, and in the restricted funds account, $6,596.27. Are there any questions regarding the financial statement? We did have a little bit of a surprise deposit. I received a check from Rita Raines on a 2014 property taxes that were paid in the amount of $276.88, and that was actually from the to do with the Summit Gas situation from 2014. They were able to release some of those funds that they had contested their tax. They paid the taxes, but they contested them, so therefore they couldn't divvy it out to the schools and communities. So anyway, we got that check from $276.88.
Income, that's good. Are there any questions about the general checking account that Elaine's presented, or the restricted funds account? Okay, so I know it's fine.
Proposal to accept.
Thanks. Lori, move to accept. Motion.
Motion.
And Alita seconded. You need roll call? I don't think you need roll call, because we initial, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Unanimous. Okay. Jim, is that your report? Jim, you want to talk to us about the water report, finances, please?
Okay, as of now, we got $10,856.84 in the water.
Okay. Anything irregular? No bounce checks, no connections or disconnects?
That's what I'm thinking of. We've all done last month. I had put one in, or, yeah, the bank in Kansas City put a deposit back, $200 deposit on the Tom American.
Okay, so the bank company that owned it made the deposit and it was returned to them because it's now sold and somebody else made a deposit and it's passing service.
Was that on water and sewer deposit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it was water and sewer. That makes sense.
100 for the water.
100 each, right? Okay. Good.
Other than that, it's pretty quiet. I had looked to a meter to David Elmer.
And you can do the park
Yeah.
And both water and sewer at Elmore's.
You don't ship it through.
Okay, right, because it, and then the park you can do anytime. You're right. The deposit. But did you send the deposit back to Elmore? No.
Yeah, it's only $35 and I can bill was $40-some.
And that was true on both the water and sewer deposit, that his monthly bill was higher than what his deposit had been. Okay? Yes, the check was John about the check. Thanks. Any questions of Jim? Did he pass me over?
Yeah, we did Jim's sewer, right?
Water. Yeah.
Just did water.
Financials.
We're on
We're
financial
still
still.
on
Oh, we're still on
Yeah.
financial. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
No, I see what the question,
Okay,
how that
yeah,
is.
got it.
Be easy to, yeah. Okay, now sewer?
Okay,
Yeah.
down there is $5,088.39.
Which is,
And
right. Which is $1,000 less than it was last month. And that's because, do we have some extraordinary?
well, yeah, we had, no, not really, I've got my. No, not really.
I may not be reading that right either.
Pretty much the same thing every month. Electric might have been up a little bit.
So, the 12, on the front page here where it's under your records, unclear transactions, checks and payments, 11 items, that's $1,225.33.